I never imagined that the day my own daughter came into money, the first thing she'd do was cast me aside like I was nothing. But there I stood, rain soaking through my sweater, mascara bleeding down the lines of my face, watching the security lights from her new mansion blind my swollen eyes. It wasn't the storm that broke me. It was her voice. "You'll never see a dime of my money, you old witch." Then the suitcase hit the concrete. My suitcase. The same one I had packed that morning with clothes folded neatly, with hope in my heart that we'd finally get along. It burst open on her spotless driveway like a blister, spilling out underwear, socks, my old blouse I used to wear when babysitting her boys. My toothbrush rolled into the gutter like it knew it didn't belong anymore. She didn't flinch. And standing right behind her, arms crossed and smirking, was her new boyfriend barely older than her oldest son. The mansion behind them still had real estate ribbons on it. She hadn't even taken down the sold sign. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there, quiet, letting the rain slick my gray hair to my scalp. Thank God her kids weren't home. They didn't have to see their grandmother thrown out like a worn-out mop. "You're a leech," she shouted from the doorway. "I worked hard for this. You don't get to mooch off me just because you're old." Worked hard? My jaw clenched. I'd paid her rent for 4 years, raised her boys while she jumped from job to job, gave up my retirement so she could start over, again and again. But I didn't say a word, not yet. I refused to give her the satisfaction of watching me fall apart. I picked up my socks one by one, my hands trembling not from weakness but from cold. I clutched my suitcase to my chest and stepped back. The dirt mixed with the rain, turning everything to sludge under my shoes. She thought I'd crawl back, that I'd beg. But what she didn't know was she'd made a mistake. A small one. One that would cost her everything. A few weeks earlier, we were still a team, or at least, that's what I told myself. I was folding her kids' laundry, cooking dinner, covering half the bills out of my modest pension. She said it was temporary, just a rough patch until she found her next big opportunity. I didn't ask too many questions. I never did. That little split-level house with the cracked tile and chipped banister wasn't much, but it was ours. It was loud with cartoons, messy with socks under couches, and sticky from juice spills, but it was home. We made do. We leaned on each other, or so I thought. And we had this silly little habit, our ritual. When life felt too heavy, we'd swing by the corner gas station and each grab a lottery ticket. Nothing fancy, $2 each. I always picked random numbers. She liked birthdays. We'd sit at the kitchen table, line them up, and laugh at the idea of getting rich. "Can you imagine?" she'd say, grinning. $10 million. No more Raymond. No more late fees. I'd tease her back. "Yeah, maybe I'll finally get that porch swing I've been talking about for 10 years. It wasn't about winning. It was about hoping, sharing the dream, bonding over the impossible. She used to say, "If I ever win, I'm splitting it with you, Mom. I got you." She said it more than once. She said it enough times that I believed her. Even when she didn't pay her half of the water bill. Even when she left her mess all over the living room and rolled her eyes when I asked her to help clean. Even when she left me to watch the boys so she could go to interviews that always seemed to end at bars. She had her moods. She was tired. She was figuring it out. That's what I told myself. Because that's what mothers do. We cushion the falls. We carry the weight, even when no one sees it. But that week, something shifted. She was off, distant, jumping when the phone rang, whispering behind closed doors, snapping at the kids. I thought maybe she was overwhelmed again. I didn't push. But I should have. That Thursday evening we were sitting on the couch, watching the local news. A cheerful anchor was announcing that a winning lottery ticket had been sold just down the road, our regular gas station. "Someone in this neighborhood is a millionaire tonight," he said with a grin. She shifted beside me. Didn't smile. Didn't joke. "You ever buy from there this week?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "Yeah," I replied. "Grabbed one Monday with the groceries. Why?" She shrugged. "Just curious." She didn't look at me, just kept scrolling on her phone. The next morning, the ticket was gone. Not in the junk drawer. Not on the fridge under the smiley magnet. Not in my wallet. I looked everywhere. Cabinets, under papers, even the trash. My stomach tightened with each passing minute. But I didn't ask her. Because I didn't want to believe it. That night she cooked dinner, poured wine like we were celebrating something. She even kissed me on the cheek when she said goodnight. She never did any of that, not in months. The next day she came home with new shoes, designer, then a fancy purse, then her nails done. Expensive, shiny. When I asked about it, she said she'd gotten a bonus. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. But deep down, something didn't sit right. And then, a few days later, she came bursting through the door like a child on Christmas morning. "You are not going to believe this," she said, practically shaking. She held up a check, $10 million. "I won," she said, voice trembling with joy. "I actually freaking won." I looked at her. And in that moment, I knew she was lying. Because she never buys tickets. She never carries cash, hates waiting in line, hates small talk with clerks. And yet somehow, this week of all weeks, she magically had the winning numbers. I forced a smile. "Wow, that's incredible." She hugged me like nothing had happened, said, "I'm finally getting us out of this dump. We're gonna live the life we deserve." Us. But I knew better. That us had an expiration date. And it was coming faster than I was willing to admit. Because she didn't just lie. She stole something. And she had no idea what she'd really taken. 3 days later, she was gone. No goodbye, no note, just silence and a missing toothbrush. At first I thought maybe she'd just gone on a quick trip. Maybe she'd taken the boys to visit friends. But the kitchen was too still. Her closet was half empty. The drawers hollow. It wasn't a vacation. She had vanished. And I wouldn't have known for sure if it weren't for our neighbor, Mr. Grant, who leaned over the fence as I was watering the dry hydrangeas out front. "Hey, Marjorie," he said, cigarette dangling from his lips. "Saw a moving truck this morning around 5. Thought you were heading out." I blinked. Moving truck. "Yeah, U-Haul. 2 guys loading boxes. She was out there in heels and a silk robe directing them like a general." I didn't respond, just nodded, my throat tightening. She'd left before sunrise, slipped out while I was in the back garden pulling weeds like a fool. She didn't just move out. She escaped. That word clung to my thoughts all day, escaped like I was something dangerous, something to run from, a burden she'd finally gotten rid of. I walked into the kitchen and stared at the fridge. The Smiley magnet was still there. But the ticket, the one I had bought, the one I had pinned up that Monday afternoon, was gone. It wasn't just a suspicion anymore. She had taken it. She had taken my future, my security, my dignity, and bought herself a new life with it. I opened the junk drawer and pulled out an old envelope where I kept grocery receipts and clip coupons. Tucked in the back was a faded photo, one I'd taken the day I bought the ticket. Just for fun. The numbers were slightly blurred, the angle tilted, but the timestamp was clear. The store name, the date, the time. It was mine. And suddenly, the tears I'd swallowed back all week began to fall, not from pain, but from clarity. She thought I was too soft, too old, too slow to notice. But she'd forgotten one thing. I was the one who signed the back of that ticket. And that tiny oversight? That was about to unravel everything. I didn't go to her. Not yet. Instead, I went back to the gas station, our gas station, the same one where I'd picked up milk, paid bills, and bought lottery tickets out of habit for the past 15 years. The man behind the counter, Ben, looked up and smiled like he always did. "Miss Marjorie," he said, "been a while." I managed a tight smile. "Ben, I need to ask you something." He leaned in. "Of course." "Do you remember the lottery ticket I bought last Monday? I joked about buying a beach house and leaving my daughter the dishes." He chuckled. "Yeah, I remember. You were in line behind that loud guy on the phone." My heart thudded. Do you still have the security footage?" Ben's smile faded. "I think so. Why?" "Because that ticket's gone. And someone else is claiming they bought it." He blinked. "Wait, what?" "I signed the back of it," I said, like I always do. Ben stood still for a moment, then nodded. "Let me check." 10 minutes later, we were in the tiny back office, staring at a grainy monitor. And there I was. My coat, my purse, my knit cap pulled low over my gray roots. I watched myself hand over the bill, then take the ticket. Then I reached into my purse, pulled out a pen, and signed the back. My name, Marjorie Blake. Ben turned to me slowly. You want to record this? I pulled out my phone. Yes, please. No words, just proof. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table with the photo of the ticket, the surveillance footage, and a printed receipt from my wallet. Then I picked up the phone and called the state lottery office. I told them everything. Where I bought the ticket, when, that I had signed it, that I had sent his security footage, that someone else, my daughter, had taken it. There was a pause on the line. Then the woman said, if your name's on the back and it matches the footage, we'll open a formal investigation. Can you freeze the payout? Yes, she said, once the process begins. I didn't gloat. I didn't cry. I just exhaled. Because for the first time in weeks, I wasn't waiting to be saved. I was standing up for myself. I didn't call her. I didn't text. I didn't post anything online. Let her keep sipping champagne in rented lounges and tagging realtors in her stories. While she was busy curating her new life for likes and strangers, I was building something real, one document, one photo, one signature at a time. The next day, I met Dana Whitaker, a lawyer referred to me by Mrs. Ellison, my retired neighbor who'd gone through something similar with her own son. Dana was sharp, calm, and didn't waste time. She read through the folder I'd brought receipts, my signed ticket photo, the surveillance stills, and when she looked up, she didn't ask if I was sure. She just said, "This isn't just a mistake, it's theft, and you have a case." I nodded, trying to steady my breath. "I don't want revenge," I said softly. "I want what's mine." "Then, let's get it." That afternoon, we submitted everything to the state lottery office. Dana's tone was firm, her language precise. She'd handled cases like this before. By the end of the week, I got a call from the commission. "Your claim is being formally investigated," the official told me. "We've frozen all accounts linked to the payout. The public announcement has been delayed." I hung up, sat in the kitchen with a cup of lukewarm tea, and stared out the window. No gold-plated mansion. No yacht. Just chipped cabinets, a faded rug, and the old humming fridge with the magnet still stuck to it. But you know what? It felt real. It felt like mine. I still didn't tell her. Because people like my daughter never see the crash coming. They're too busy dancing in the storm to feel the lightning behind them. She kept posting. New bags, poolside brunches, another rooftop cocktail with a new group of friends. She didn't post the boys as much anymore. First just once a week. Then not at all. And that silence told me more than any caption ever could. She had replaced me with noise. A nanny who couldn't spell their names. People who clapped when she called me toxic. But I stayed quiet. Because my silence was no longer surrender. It was strategy. Her social media became a showroom. Every post was a declaration, every caption a jab disguised as self-love, finally free from leeches. Surround yourself with winners, not beggars. Cutting out the toxic ones for good. No names, but I knew who she meant. Everyone did. And they applauded. Her old high school friends, the cousins who hadn't visited in years, all joined in the chorus. "We always knew you'd rise. Good riddance to dead weight. Wait. Live your life, girl." I stared at the screen as comment after comment poured in, each one hitting like a slap. Not because I cared what they thought of me, they didn't know me, but because she'd let them rewrite the story. She let them erase me. They didn't know the woman who skipped meals so her daughter could eat seconds. The woman who co-signed on a lease when her credit was ruined. The woman who stayed up all night during fevers and meltdowns, who cleaned vomit from the carpet while her daughter drank herself numb in another zip code. They didn't know because she never told them. She replaced my years of sacrifice with a single word, leech. But I didn't respond. I just took screenshots. Every post, every comment, every selfie that showed her flashing stolen wealth. Not to shame her. To build a record. To let the truth speak for itself. Then I printed them, all of them, and slid them into the manila folder I carried to Dana's office. She reviewed them carefully, lips pressed, glasses sliding down her nose. "She's painting you as a parasite while spending money that legally isn't hers." I nodded. "She made herself the face of the prize," Dana said. "This helps us. Because the louder my daughter bragged, the more she exposed. Every boutique tagged, every location shared, every high-end purchase documented without a trace of financial trail, at least not one in her name." "She's made it easy," Dana added. "Arrogance always does." That week, the Lottery Commission confirmed the footage, verified my receipts, and acknowledged the signature. Everything was aligning. And I still hadn't said a word to her. Because the more she posted, the deeper she dug her own hole. And I wasn't going to interrupt her while she was still holding the shovel. It didn't take long for the silence to begin. 2 days after the commission froze the funds, her feed went dark. No more rooftop boomerangs, no luxury handbag unboxings, no wine glasses clinking in celebration. Just nothing. I imagined her waking up that morning, stretching in her new king-sized bed, reaching for her phone to check her accounts, and finding them locked. Declined. Frozen. Access denied. I pictured her confusion turning to panic. The frantic calls to the bank. The disbelief when the customer service rep couldn't explain why her money was inaccessible. The growing dread as she realized something was deeply wrong. But I didn't smile. This wasn't about revenge. It was about dignity. I had done everything right, loved beyond my limits, sacrificed without expectation, gave without taking. And she paid me back with mockery and exile. So, no, I didn't laugh when the silence hit her. I just waited. Let the weight of her choices find her on its own. Meanwhile, the state verified every detail: timestamps, location, surveillance angles, signature match. Everything pointed back to me. And once it was official, they scheduled a press conference, small, quiet, just enough reporters to make the truth public. No warning was sent to her. I didn't need to explain myself. She had already told her story loud and proud. Now it was my turn. The night before the announcement, I couldn't sleep, not because of nerves but because of memories. I lay in my small bed, watching shadows move across the ceiling fan, and thought of her as a child, her first heartbreak, her teenage sobs at 2 a.m., her whispered fears about being left behind. How ironic. In the end, she was the one who left me. But not anymore. Morning came and I stood in front of the mirror. I pulled my hair back, buttoned the blouse I used to save for holidays, and took a long look at the woman staring back. Not a victim. Not a shadow. A mother who had finally stopped giving her voice away. That day, I didn't walk into a mansion. I walked into a small community hall with Dana by my side. And when they called my name, I stepped up and said it clearly. "My name is Marjorie Blake. I bought that ticket. I signed it. I am the rightful winner." And for the first time in years, the world listened. The news broke fast. It was barely noon when my phone started buzzing like a hive: calls, texts, voicemails. People I hadn't heard from in years suddenly remembered my number. But I didn't pick up. I sat still, hands folded in my lap, letting the waves of noise pass like distant thunder. I wasn't waiting for any of them. I was waiting for her. At 1:43 p.m., her name lit up my screen. No photo, just her name. I answered. No greeting, no apology, just her voice, raw, angry, unraveling. "You stole my life," she spat, breath jagged. "You humiliated me." I said nothing. "You think this is justice?" she went on. "You embarrass me in front of everyone? I can't even face my friends. My accounts are frozen. What am I supposed to do now?" I let the silence hang. Then, calmly, I said, "You could start by saying thank you." There was a pause. Then a scoff. "For what?" "For the 5 years I kept the roof over your head when you couldn't hold a job," I said. "For raising your children while you found yourself in bars. For paying off your credit cards. For not calling the police when you stole from me." She choked on her words. "You're lying." "No," I said, voice steady. "I have proof. I signed that ticket. You didn't even check, you just took it." Her bravado cracked. I could hear it in her breathing. "This is revenge," she hissed. "No," I replied. "This is truth. You built your life on a lie. I just stopped letting you pretend it was a palace." She sobbed, not the soft kind, the wild, panicked kind, like someone realizing their parachute won't open mid-fall. "You've ruined everything." "No," I said. "You did. I just stopped cleaning up the mess." Then her voice changed, desperate, small. "I need help." And that was it. Not remorse. Not love. Just need. I let the silence speak for me. Her voice hardened again. "You got what you wanted. You're on the check. You're the winner. Are you happy now?" I paused. And then, for the first time in years, I smiled. "No," I said, "but I bought you out of my life." And I hung up. No anger. No drama. Just peace. The next morning, the sun rose quietly over the same old neighborhood. No sirens. No headlines screaming my name. Just a breeze through the curtains and the scent of coffee brewing in my chipped ceramic mug. She never called again. But I didn't expect her to. Instead, I heard the aftermath through whispers. Her mansion under review. The convertible leased in a name she could no longer use. Her cards all declined, her followers quietly unfollowing, and the friends who once toasted to her freedom from leeches, gone. People like her never stay surrounded for long, not when the glitter fades. The state finalized everything. The funds were legally reissued to me. I received the check with little fanfare, standing alone on my porch, the envelope in hand, the world still intact beneath my feet. I didn't post about it. I didn't throw a party. I just paid off my mortgage. Donated half to women's shelters and single mothers. Took my grandsons on my own terms for a weekend by the coast. No palace, no spotlight. Just real life, earned honestly. Weeks later, she showed up at my door again. No makeup, no heels, no arrogance. Just a sweatshirt and eyes that looked 10 years older. I didn't open the door this time. She stood there, waiting. Then she whispered, "Mom, I don't have anywhere else to go." I heard it. But I didn't move. Because some bridges don't need to be rebuilt. Some lessons don't sink in until the silence is louder than the scream. And some love has to stop when it turns into survival. So I walked away from the window. Not cold. Not cruel. Just clear. She didn't just take my ticket. She took years of trust, of forgiveness, and ran it dry. But what she never understood was that strength doesn't always look like shouting. Sometimes it looks like turning around. And not looking back. This wasn't revenge. This was release. And in that quiet moment, standing in my own home, surrounded by peace, not pity, I finally understood. She never truly left me behind. She lost me. By choice. And I chose myself finally. If this story spoke to you, if you've ever had to let go of someone you once held too tightly, don't be afraid to share your truth. Like, comment, share. And remember, silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the loudest way to reclaim your power.